Good morning, everyone. Good morning and happy Friday. I am here today and so very pleased to have as my guest Anjel Burgess. And Anjel is a disability attorney. Her specialty is in Social Security. And so, for those watching on YouTube and for those watching on Facebook, give us a shout out. I see a couple of folks have joined us already, so thank you so much. And just know that today's interview will be archived in my private Facebook group, Real Talk with Rita, and it will also be on YouTube as well. So for some reason you can't watch live, we thank you for watching on the replay as well, on demand and at your convenience. So we are going to go ahead and jump right in. I think I'm just going to wait a couple minutes. I see some folks that are joining. And so if you're able to give us a shout out and let us know that you're watching, please do in the chat. If you're watching on Facebook, you'll need to give StreamYard permission so I can see your name. You don't have to do that. But folks on YouTube, I absolutely can see your name, and there's that synchronicity going between StreamYard and YouTube. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning. And by the way, I have some prepared questions that I'm going to be asking Anjel. But if you have questions, go ahead and jump in. Good morning, Melissa. And again, I'm going to give you Anjel's contact information as well as mine later on. So no worries. There's a way to get your questions answered today. Okay. All right. So I have, again, thank you so much for joining me, Anjel. And we're going to just go ahead and jump right in. So tell us a little bit, welcome. Tell us a little bit about your law practice and who you serve.
Sure. So my firm specializes in Social Security disability. And what that means is that we help people who either need to apply for Social Security disability benefits or have already applied and are waiting for a decision or have applied and been denied. We help people that have hearings scheduled and maybe have a hearing scheduled next week and need to have an attorney representing them. And we have helped people that have been denied at hearings. So essentially, we help at all stages of the process with Social Security disability. And we help not only adults with claims, but we also help children with claims as well. The great thing about Social Security is that it is a federal program. And so that allows me to represent clients all across the country. So the rules are the same, whether you live in Georgia or you live in Minnesota. And so that allows me to help people across the country with their disability claims.
So typically, what percentage do you serve that is in Georgia versus the rest of the country?
I would say probably the majority of my clients are in Georgia. I have a lot of clients that, start off living in Georgia and then they move to other states. And so, again, because of the convenience of the laws being federal, I'm able to just continue to represent them, even though they may have moved across the country. But I also have, in certain areas, clients that live all over the state. I work a lot with different organizations, for example, the Hypersomnia Foundation, and a lot of my clients that have hypersomnia may live, anywhere across the country.
Okay, so that's really good to know. So you are based in the Metro Atlanta area. You serve Georgia, but you can work and serve individuals from all 50 states.
Yes.
So shifting to SSI, as the interviews that the folks that I interview, the purpose of this channel is to support caregivers of adults with developmental disabilities. So we're going to switch to SSI.
Okay.
Although if you are watching and you have a question regarding a child, feel free to ask that as well too. That's okay. So regarding SSI, what are some of the biggest challenges or mistakes that you have encountered when families who support adults with developmental disabilities submit that initial SSI application?
One of the biggest mistakes that I see is that, a family may submit an application for SSI for their loved one, and they get what's called a technical denial. So with SSI, it's a program that has very specific requirements in terms of your income, your assets, and you have to be below a certain level, income and asset wise, in order to qualify. So oftentimes I see that families aren't aware of this and they'll apply for SSI, they get the denial, and then they think, well, I've received this denial, so my child is not eligible for benefits. And that's not necessarily true. So it's important to know that if you get a denial for any reason, that does not mean that your child or that you are not disabled. You just have to know the basis for the denial, and you just need to know to continue on through the process. The second challenge that I would say that I see is that sometimes families will submit an application for SSI. Let's say their loved one has just turned 18, or falls somewhere between that, what I like to call transitioning adult age, which is 18 to 22 or so. And so they'll submit the application, but with that application, they're submitting, records from when the child was born. They're not submitting any current evidence that Social Security could use to decide whether or not that child is disabled. So I would say that would be the second biggest issue that I see, is that they're not providing Social Security with any updated information.
Okay. Okay. That is really very helpful to know. So, and some of the letters that the folks at the federal level, well, and state level too, they can be pretty strong letters, right? You are denied, and it has that in capitals or whatever. So, they can be a little bit intimidating. So, thank you for letting us know that there's still hope, of course. And then
Absolutely.
also, if you have a son or daughter, say that's 16, 17, still living at home, would you recommend to go ahead and get a current psychological eval or
Yes.
something like that? Okay, so how far back or how current would they like to see it ideally?
Ideally, I would say within 2 years of 18. And the closer that you can get to 18, the better in terms of
Okay,
the psychological evaluation. Now, if you have, a young adult that's already 18, let's say they're 20 and they haven't had a psychological evaluation, in the last 4 years, I would suggest getting an updated evaluation.
okay. So we could potentially ask the school for that if the individual is still in school. If someone is not able to afford a psychological, what are there any options for that as well? That yeah,
There could be.
could be.
I know that through vocational rehabilitation and the services there that they provide, which they are in every state, part of their assessment typically includes a psychological evaluation.
Okay.
So, and the great thing about vocational rehabilitation and getting an assessment is that if we're dealing with a young adult that's 18, they are going to be looking to see, is this young adult employable? Um,
Mhm.
are there any challenges that this young adult may have with, working full time, being competitively employed? And that's also the same thing that Social Security is looking to see. So, I
Okay.
mean, it's definitely very helpful. It can be very helpful for a an evaluation from vocational rehabilitation.
Okay. That's great. That's also great to know because those psychologicals can be quite costly if you do it on the private side, right?
Yes.
Okay. Um, is there a difference in applying for Social Security for SSI for a child with a disability versus an adult with a disability?
Yes, actually, there are huge differences. Social Security has specific rules and regulations in place for children. So if you have a child that's under the age of 18, what Social Security does when they're reviewing the claim is they are comparing your child with other children of the same age that do not have disabilities. From there,
Mm.
they are looking at your child in 6 different areas, and they call them domains of functioning. And so for every child's case, they go through these 6 domains of functioning to see, how severe the impact of the disability is to your child. So those domains of functioning are, how well does your child acquire and use information? How well does your child attend to and complete tasks? How well your child interacts and relates to other people?
Mhm.
Whether your child has any challenges with moving, manipulating objects, fine motor skills, dexterity, those types of things. How well your child cares for himself or herself, so expresses their needs appropriately, any frustrations, do they know the things that they need to do to care for themselves? And then the last domain of functioning is about health and physical well-being. So just the child's general state of well-being. Do they require frequent hospitalizations? Are there medications that they have to take regularly that cause significant impacts? Do they need infusions? Things of that nature. So they will go through each of those 6 domains of functioning to see how severely your child is impacted in those areas. So that's what they do on the child side for disability. On the adult side, completely different set of rules. And as an adult, ages 18 or older, Social Security is trying to figure out essentially, can this adult work full time in any job on a competitive level? And so when I say on a competitive level, I mean without having accommodations. So can
Mhm.
they go in there and do the job as the job is intended to be done without having any sort of special supervision or, having reduced duties, having a job coach, all of those things are accommodations. So they're looking to see what the adult can do independently on a full-time
Mhm.
basis.
Okay. So that is quite a difference
Yes.
in the approval or the requirements rather. I do have a question here that's popped up, so let me just bring that up and see if that's something that you can answer. What are the steps if you have a sibling and a parent passes away in order for the parent benefit to go to the individual? What are the steps if you have a sibling and a parent passes away? Um, is that something that you can answer?
I think I understand the question.
Yeah.
So if I guess the first thing I would say is if the sibling is a minor and the parent passes away, then there are survivors benefits that are should be available to the sibling. And so you would just need to contact Social Security about the survivors benefits. Now,
Okay.
if that sibling is not a minor, so if that sibling is an adult, then there are 2 different scenarios. Okay. One scenario is that that sibling is an adult with disabilities, but has never received any sort of disability from Social Security. If that's the case, depending on the age of the sibling and how long the sibling has had the disability, then you may be able to file for benefits under a program. It's a childhood disability program, but it's known as a disabled adult child. And so under the disabled adult child program, what that allows is that if you can prove that your sibling became disabled, between the ages of 18 and prior to their 22nd birthday, then that sibling may be able to receive disability benefits off of their deceased parent's earnings record, even if that sibling has never worked. So there are a couple of other, requirements that have to be met with the disabled adult child program, but that is one option. The other option is if the sibling, for whatever reason, is not going to qualify as a disabled adult child, but has a disability, then depending on the assets of that sibling, the sibling can simply apply for SSI, even if they've never worked, and receive benefits that way.
Okay. So there is an avenue to be able to, okay, she is not a minor, she is 47
Okay.
years of age. Okay, so
Okay.
that's good to know. What I also want to do, folks, is just, and I'll put this up several times. I'm going to put Angel's contact information, her email, if you want to reach out to her. I know each of these cases is so unique, right? I mean, no one is the same as another. I mean,
That's
they're,
right.
yeah. So I'm certain that folks will have unique questions. But I appreciate that there are some ways that we can share in just the kind of the general information of SSI too. So what's the percentage of people who receive a denial from SSI on their first try? What would you guess?
So unfortunately, it's high. I would
Oh,
say
wow.
70 to 75% of people are going to get a denial on that first try.
Wow, I had no idea it was that high. Okay. So you get that sort of unfriendly letter in the mail,
That's right.
right? So what might people do if they receive that denial? Because I imagine some of those folks just give up, right? But you're saying you don't have to do that.
I'm saying don't do that.
Okay.
If you felt that there was a reason that your child or that you can qualify for disability and you get a denial, do not give up. A lot of people that have valid claims give up. And a lot of times I have clients that will come to me and they may have applied several years ago. They got a denial and they just gave up. They said, "Well, the letter said that, they considered all the evidence and that, my child didn't meet the requirements, so we just gave up." And then in talking to a friend a few years later, the friend says, "Hey, no, you need to try again." And they do, and they come to me and we're able to get in to work on the claim and many times get them benefits. Well, they could have had benefits, 5 years ago. You just have to know to keep moving forward. And if you get a denial, you have 60 days to appeal that denial. If you get a
60
denial and you
days.
don't have an attorney, then that may be a point in time where you want to consider, can I benefit from the use of an attorney? And if you get a denial and you have an attorney, you've got 60 days to file that appeal. Otherwise, the claim is going to be closed out.
And so is there a fee for families or for individuals for your services regarding those SSI appeals?
Yes. So Social Security is pretty unique, and this is in a good way, in the way that they handle attorney payments. So typically, when you think of an attorney, you think, I have to come up with some money out of pocket upfront to pay a retainer. Social Security actually regulates the payment of attorneys' fees. And so they have rules about it. And the rules say that as attorneys, we have to work on a contingency basis. What that means is, in order for us to get paid, number one, we have to win your case for you. So that's real important, okay? We have to win your case for you. And also, you have to be entitled to past due benefits, which is also known as back pay. And so, if both of those conditions are met, then the attorney gets paid. And the attorney is paid 25% of your back pay, but that there is a cap, and that cap is $7,200. So the attorney's fees can vary from zero to $7,200 in your disability case. And what Social Security does is when you get approved for benefits and they figure out how much your back pay is, they are going to withhold the attorney's fees to pay the attorney directly. So
Okay,
it's
so it
not as if
doesn't come out of your personal bank account then? Okay,
exactly.
okay,
So they
okay.
will pay the attorneys directly. So the rules actually benefit both you as the claimant and the attorney, because what it means is that the attorneys are only going to take cases that they think that they can win and that you can be entitled to back pay, because that is how we are paid as attorneys.
And how have you seen in terms of back pay, how far can they go back? What's a typical, yeah.
So it depends on which program you're applying to. So SSI has rules about back pay that are different than the SSDI, which is the commonly known as the workers program. So it's a Social Security Disability Insurance Benefits program. With SSI, you can only be paid back to the time of application. And
Okay.
technically, it's the month after you apply. So if you apply for benefits in, January 3rd of 2020, let's say you apply for benefits and you don't get approved until, January of 2023, and Social Security says, yes, you have been disabled, since you applied in January 2020, your back pay is going to start February of 2020 because it's the next month. But that's as far back as you can go.
Okay.
February of 2020 for the SSI. So the month after you apply, which means that it's very important for you to apply as soon as possible, because every month that you wait to apply, you are potentially losing out on benefits. Now, for the SSDI program, which people also call DIB, that program gives you more leeway. And so, what that program says is that they can pay you back up to 1 year prior to the
Mhm.
date that you apply.
Okay.
So, they will pay you back further, if you prove that your disability began at an earlier date and time. But it only goes back up to 1 year.
One
So,
year.
again, you want to apply as soon as possible to maximize your potential benefits.
And in terms of the appeal process, how long does that take approximately?
So, it really depends on the stage of the appeal. So, the life cycle of a typical disability case is usually in 3 steps. You will file an application for disability benefits, whether that's SSI or SSDI. If you get denied, you have 60 days to appeal that denial. And what you do when you appeal is you file for reconsideration. And then if you get denied again at reconsideration, then you apply for a hearing with a judge. But at step one, the initial application, it usually takes anywhere from, 4 months to sometimes over a year to get a decision.
Okay.
So it can be very long. At step two, reconsideration, what they're doing is they're just taking another look. So they're taking a fresh look at the evidence. They're looking at any updates to see if anything new has happened that would change their minds. So reconsideration is usually much shorter because they're just looking at updates. Um, and so that stage, you can usually get a decision anywhere between like 3 and 8 months. And then
Okay.
waiting for a hearing um, tends to be, at least pre-COVID, that used to be the longest step in the process. And most people are waiting anywhere from 8 months to a year and a half or so from the time that they request a hearing to get a hearing scheduled. So, all in all, the process can be very long. The average, at least in this area in Georgia, is about 2 years from when you apply to when you get to a hearing, if you have to go that far in the process.
Wow. So, but again, folks should not give up on
That's
this
right.
process. Okay. Even though it can be lengthy. We do have a question here from someone in Massachusetts. Oh, it's covering our faces here, but my daughter will be 21 in a few months. She started receiving SSI at 19. She currently receives about $65 a month in SSI. We live in Massachusetts, and because she's in school and I receive child support, they count that as her income. Therefore, her SSI amount is limited. She has been classified as disabled. When she ages out in the next year, how do I make sure her SSI changes? Do I have to reapply?
So if the short answer is no, if I think I understand this correctly, when you're talking about her aging out, are you talking about her child support? If you're talking about child support, what you will do is when the child support payments end, then you will just let Social Security know that the child support payments have ended. And then her SSI will be adjusted accordingly. So I think that's what you're asking. That does
Yeah.
not require you to reapply.
So I think the aging out means of school, and I don't know if that is relevant. It might be, it might not be, but I think what you're saying, Angel, is that she needs to report any changes to SSI. Is that correct? And so child support does factor in as income,
Absolutely. It
even
does.
for adults.
Yes.
Her daughter's 19. Okay.
Yes. And
Okay.
okay, so there is an instance where a child could receive SSI, and I don't
Mhm.
know, based off of the facts that have been presented, she said that her child started receiving SSI at 19. So they should have at that point considered her just as an adult, even though she was still in school. So in that case, then there is no aging out.
Right.
Sometimes what we see happens is that someone at 18 is still in school, and they start receiving SSI, and they will allow them to continue, or even before 18, they will allow them to continue to receive benefits um, before they have to recertify. So I don't think that the question relates to that.
Okay.
But if that's the case, please send me an email and we can go over all the specifics and try to figure out an answer to your question.
Because there's other factors too, right? So there's child support that's a factor here, even and the fact that she's an adult, and then is there any rent that's being charged, et cetera? Does that also fall into this
It does.
factor in? Okay,
It does. So any source of income, even if it's not income that's going directly to the adult child. So, living in someone else's home when you're not paying rent, you're still being provided for financially. So, Social Security is going to withhold a third of her SSI if she's living with you and she's not paying rent.
and so but does being in school affect SSI at all in terms of
Um,
adults?
so, generally, no.
Okay,
What's going to affect the SSI is going to be the age more so than the status. But if she
okay,
started receiving it at 19, then there shouldn't be any implications there in terms of whether or not she's in school.
okay. And again, Melissa, please reach out to Angel. I've got her email here if you have any more questions. We have one more question. Can legal services be sought anytime during the SSI process? I'm in reconsideration phase. Do I need to wait for the next denial? It's a good question.
That is a good question. So yes, you can hire an attorney at any stage of the process, even if your claim is pending as yours is at reconsideration. Yes, you can hire an attorney right now, even with a pending claim.
Okay. Okay, great. Angel, is there anything else that I haven't asked that folks might want to know? We're at the end of our half an hour. I've got your information here. If folks want to reach out to you from whichever state they currently live in, is there anything else that I maybe haven't asked? Or do you think we covered it all?
I would say we've pretty much covered it all. I know that hiring an attorney has come up a couple of times. And really the only thing that I would add is the benefit to having an attorney. First, it is completely optional, so nobody is forced to have an attorney. However, in filing for disability, you are initiating essentially a proceeding where there are rules and regulations. And it's important to know what those rules and regulations are. That's where attorneys come in. Attorneys that know their SSI and know the requirements for SSDI can be instrumental in your claim, not only to guide you through the process, but to make sure that your application is being processed appropriately, to make sure that Social Security has the information that they need to make an informed decision. To make sure that you're applying for a program that you're actually qualified for and that there aren't any reasons for technical denial. And if there are, attorneys can help you figure out, okay, this is how I can become eligible. Here are the steps that I can take. Maybe I'm not eligible now, but these are the steps that I can take to become eligible. And then lastly, most claims, as I discussed earlier, are going to end up being denied at initial. Even more claims get denied at reconsideration because Social Security is just taking another look. They've already said no, and they're just taking another look and looking for updated information. So in most cases, like 90% of the time, at reconsideration, you're going to get another denial. When you get to the hearing level, if your case goes that far, that is the opportunity where you get to go in front of a judge, whether that's in person, over the telephone, or by video, and your case gets to be presented. You are a part of presenting your case, but most importantly, your attorney is the one that is, familiar with the rules and regulations and that can help highlight all the things that are important for the judge to know that maybe the judge doesn't know is important. And so I think that it's important to consider hiring an attorney, talk with someone, see if there's a good fit there. And the best thing about it is it does not require an upfront investment from you. So the attorney's got to earn his or her money and win your case for you and get you some back pay in order to be paid. So I really do feel like that the way that Social Security has it set up is just a win-win situation for a client because you've got the legal representation with the expert that knows the rules and regulations, and it's to that attorney's benefit to win for you.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Angel, for helping us navigate this SSI, SSDI maze. It is very confusing for us family members, and we just appreciate you so much. Again, if you want to reach out, I have an email address for Angel on the screen. Thank you so much for your time today, and I hope to invite you back.
Thank you for having me. I'd
Hope
love
you'll come back. All righty. Take care. Take care, everyone. Have a great Friday.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.